Alrighty.
Okay. Brilliant. So I understand there's a 20 through 30-second lag on this. So this is the future me saying hi to the past you, or past me saying hi to the future you, I guess. And welcoming you to the session about lists in Power Query. We don't really use them much. Oh, first, the picture. I did replace it with my own at some point, but this one was just so much better. So Echo, thank you for this. Okay, so lists in Power Query. We don't use them nearly as much as we should. And so today I'm going to give you, let's say, 3 ideas about how to use them. We're going to go through 3 demos, and each of those will actually have a list feature in Power Query included. So this will be 3 Power Query demos. And hopefully you get some great ideas about things to use in your projects. My name is Gašper Kamenšek, and I'm an Excel MVP from Slovenia. And Liam would kill me if I don't say this. Slovenia is the only country in the world that has the word love in it. So without further ado, let's go to the session. So this will be all demos all the way. And we're going to start with this one. Oh, it wants to update. So here's a quick tip for you. Never update if you're doing a presentation. So we're going to get rid of that one. Okay. So in this one, we have a simple list of dates. Now in Slovenia, we write dates as day, month, year. So this is the May 11th, 2020. And these are some exchange rates. Okay. And what I want to do is I actually want to do 2 things. So these exchange rates are, let's say, taken from a website of a bank or something. And they include exchange rates for Monday through Friday, but then they're missing 2. And that will be your Saturdays and Sundays. And it will be the same thing on holidays and things like that. And if you're doing let's say a project where you're doing sales and you have a web store, that would mean you can have sales on Saturday, you can have sales on Sunday, and you can even have your local store open on Saturday and Sunday. So in effect, you would need some sort of number on those dates, right? So on the 16th and the 17th, which are missing now. And I'm going to take this just a step further. I'm actually going to do this in a sense of we're going to go from January 1st to December 31st, or let's actually push that back a bit. Let's say we're just going to go to the 30th of June, just so we have a smaller window. So we're going to create a list of all these dates, and then we're going to bring in the corresponding exchange rates, which will kind of be silly because we'll only have the 7 listed here, or 8, and we'll have to fill in the rest. So 2 key things in this demo: creating a list of dates, which is your every calendar date, or actually every calendar table in Power Query is created sort of in a way that I'll be showing here, unless you do the list dates function, which is, well, it has so many parameters, even I get lost sometimes. So we're just going to do a list of these dates, and then we're going to join it up with this, bring in the exchange rates that we have, and then fill in the rest. So let's start off by bringing in this to Power Query. So we're going to say data from table range. And let's bring this baby to this monitor like this. Okay, so these are our dates, or actually this is a table with our exchange rates and our dates. And now we need to create a list of dates ranging from the start date to end date. Now, The first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change this to date because I don't want it written like this. I'm just going to replace the current. Okay. And then I'm going to go like this. I'm going to say, I want a new query and I want to start with a blank query. And what I'm going to say is, I want things from the current workbook. Now, I don't know if you know this, but from the current workbook, you can only get tables, named ranges, and print areas. And what I have here are two named ranges. One is called end date and one is called start date. So I'm just gonna bring up the two. So let's say I'm just gonna duplicate this right now because I'm gonna need the same one for the end date, and then go back to this one, and this one, I'm just gonna say, give me the start date. So give me this table. Now it's gonna do a bunch of stuff, and I'm gonna delete some steps. So let's just wait for it. Okay. Oh, it didn't do a bunch of stuff. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change this into a number because this is, basic Excel. All dates are numbers. So I'm going to switch this start date into a number, which is, the date from the 1st to January 1st of 1900. And then I'm going to do this. I'm going to drill down into this. So I'm going to drill down into this number. So this whole query, all that it's going to return to me is it will return a parameter, and that will be this number. And I'm going to call this number start date, like this. And then I'm going to more or less repeat the process for the end date. So I'm going to go to the second query. I'm going to say, give me the end date. Okay. And I'm going to change this into a whole number. Replace current. And drill down into this one. So again, I'm just going to get a single parameter, which is the number corresponding to the last date, and I'm going to call this one end date, like this. Okay, so now I have the starting number and I have the final number, and now I need this. So this is going to be the magic of lists for you. So I'm going to start with a blank query again, and what I'm going to use is, so lists in Power Query, they always have the curly brackets, and then in the curly brackets, what you can do is you can just, input stuff like 147. That will be your list of free values. But if you want consecutive numbers between two numbers, you can go, well, give me a list from 1 to 10. And you do that with a double dot, and there you go. You get a list from 1 to 10. But I don't want a list from 1 to 10. I want a list from what I call a start date all the way to what I call the end date. Those are numbers, right? So it's going to spill out the list of all those numbers. And now I'm going to convert that to a table. Okay. Now let's call that result. Okay, I'm gonna call this one date, and it might seem funny at the moment, but just the same as I switch the dates to a whole number, I can switch them right back. I can say, well, these are actually dates. And once I do that, there you go. So January 1st all the way to, well, you can't see it, but it's June 30th. And once I have this, now I can do some magic with this. I can say, well, I want you to merge this one. I want you to merge it. Oh, lovely. The drop down is not working, so I had to put it on a different monitor, and now I'll put it back. So I have dates and I have dates, and it's matched the 8 dates that we have. So let's push them in. Okay. And I don't really need the date. It will be the same as the date in this table. So I'll just put in the exchange rate. And at this point, I have the dates. I have the exchange rates. Well, not all of them, but I have these, right? So 2 things left to do, or actually 3. So the first thing I'm going to do is, because sometimes Power Query does some sort of weird voodoo in the back, I'm going to sort by date again, just so I know that the dates are sorted the way they should be chronologically. And now I'm going to say, take this column and do 2 things. First, fill it down, and that will fill up the 16th and the 17th. Right, there you go. So now we have the 16th and the 17th, and they're the same as the 15th. And then we also have all exchange rates down to June 30th, and they're all the same as the last one that we had in our data, which would be May 20th. But now we need to go up, and that is just fill up. And there you go. So with a little bit of help from lists, we just created the exchange rates table that we can now, merge with sales and calculate sales and do stuff like that. So this is a simple list of numbers, more or less, right? And the numbers that we had were start date and end date represented as numbers. Okay, so I'm going to do the close and load, which will close and load all of this, or actually I'm just going to do close and load 2 and do only create connection. Okay, as I'm going to share these files later on, so now you have the connection. I'm only going to load this one, the final result, to a new worksheet like this, and this is the result. Okay. So that would be demo number 1, and let's save this up, and let's save it as not start, but eternal happiness. Okay, and let's close this one. Okay, let's go to demo number 2. Now this one will go deeper into lists, and it will show you how you can use lists as a sort of substitute for filters. And lists are a brilliant substitute for filters in 2 ways. Now, way number 1 is when you got to filter, let's say 20 or 30 items, that is just tedious because you got to click all of them, right? Or declick all of them, deselect all of them. It takes too much time. Or another scenario where you would use lists for filters would be if you want your filters to be dynamic. And this is, in a sense, what I want here. So we're gonna do 2 things here. We're gonna filter this table but we're going to create some context, and we're actually going to do a calculation, and we're going to do a sort of analysis of it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the this table, which holds something like this. It has the ID of, let's say it's product ID. So this is the product ID. And, or actually, sorry, this is the ID of a sale. This is the product ID. And on a certain date, we sold that product, and this was the value that we got for that product on that day, right? So the basic scenario of what we want to do is we would want to select a month. In this scenario, we're going to select May, and we would want to compare the sales of May for a certain product with sales of previous month, so of April. But we're going to do it in a very special way, because what we're going to do is this. We have some advertising campaigns that we put out for a certain product. So for these products, we had campaigns going on throughout May. And what we want is now to compare for these products. We want to compare sales of May month over month. So May versus April. And then we're going to take it just a step further, because we're going to do, okay, so we have these, but now I want to compare these to all the other products. So I want to see how these products did month over month. And then I want to have a separate row where I would take all the other products that are not on this list and compare the numbers of those to those selected on this list, right? So that's what we want to do. And now let's just head to it. So we're going to need this and this as a startup. We're going to need both tables. So we're just going to go data. And we're going to load this table to Power Query. Okay. And from this first table, we don't actually care about a channel. All we care is about product IDs. And these are product IDs that we need. But here's a clincher. We need these product IDs as a list. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this column and we're going to transform it into a list. So convert it to a list. So we go to transform and we say convert to list. Like this. And this will give us a list of products that were, let's say, advertised in May, right? And let's call this, well, let's call it a list of products. And then let's just head out for the second one, or actually let's do this. Let's just duplicate this one. Go back one. And then let's try our luck with table one. And if that doesn't work, we can always, that doesn't work. We can always try with sales. And if that doesn't work, we'll actually have to look at how I called the table. That doesn't work. Okay, then let's take it a step back. Let's just go Excel current workbook and see which tables we have. Okay, we have table 2, which we know is this one. So that one is called transactions. Brilliant name, Gašper. Thank you. Okay. So we'll open up transactions. And there we go. Okay. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get rid of this first column because I don't really need it. And then what I do need is I need months from this. And I'm going to go add column, date, month, name of month. Okay. And you're going to learn some Slovenian names now, because this is how we call months. But this is May and this is April. And those are the only two that I need. So I'm just going to roll with these. And once I have these, I don't need the dates. So I'll remove those. Okay, and now I have the product and I have the value of sales and I have the month name on which those sales occurred, right? There still would be tied to a certain date. So in April, we have plenty of sales for a certain product. But what I'm actually interested in is the sum of those sales, right? So what I want to do is for each of those months, I want to calculate for each of the products what was the sum of sales. Now, before I do that, this is where it gets interesting because I'm going to use this list of products, right? This is the list of products that will help me derive which products I'm trying to compare in the first case where I'm only comparing the ones that are on the list, and then in the second case where I want those that are not on the list. And I want to do it in a certain way. I want to do it in a single query. So everything will happen in this query. And since I want to do that, let's call this mother of all queries. And let's call this step, let's call it base, as we will return to it time and time again. So the first thing I want to do with this base is I actually want to calculate the sum for each product. And what I want to do is I'm actually going to pivot by month name, right? Because we need the sum of value or the sum of sales for April and for May. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pivot by this one. So I'm going to say transform pivot column, pivot month name, and the values column. And the drop down doesn't work again. So let's go over here. Value. It's a good thing I have 3 monitors. Okay, and I want sum to be executed on that. Okay, so there it is. So for each product, I have the sum of April and I have the sum of May, right? And now I'm going to do this. Since I actually need the, let's call it month over month growth or drop in sales, I'm going to add a column. It will be a custom column. And this one will be a simple take May minus April and then divide that by April. Okay. Great. Let's turn that into a percentage. Okay, and there we go. Now for each ID, so for each product, I actually have the month over month difference. Now I'm going to remove those two because this is all I need, right? So products and this. And now I'm going to rename this step into base 2, as this will be my base of operations where I will start using my list. So now the first thing I want to do with this table is only get those products that are on my list. Now, you could always go kind of like this, right? Give me this one, give me this one, give me this one, give me this one. And what you get is, well, you get a step that is not the most beautiful thing in the world, particularly if you have like 20 of those, right? You get something like this. But funny enough, what you get is you get a code that is very close to what we need. So we got table select rows, which is your filter. Start with base 2, which is your step or the result of the step, base 2. And then you have the each. And this is basically what you need. And I'm just gonna replace it with the code we're going to use, and it will be something like this. So instead of each product ID equals that and product ID equals that and something, we're going to go each list contains. Now list name, what is my list called? It's list of products. And then what is my column called? Well, my column is called product ID. And the equals true means if it is on the list, then the filter will retain it. So what we get is we get our 5 products, right? So our list contained 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there you go. Now it's filtered to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm hoping you see the brilliance of this, because this is truly brilliant. We could have 40 products on that list, and a filter would filter out 40 products. Whereas you saw the code before, it was this product equals that, and product equals that, and with 40 items, that would be just, well, it wouldn't be pleasant to look at. So this, a very brilliant thing, right? Okay, so now we've got the 5 items that we need, and we got the year-over-year growth on those. But now we want to do this. We want to go back to base 2. So what we're going to say is we're going to rename this step to, let's call it product 1. And that is the products that we have on our list. But now we want to calculate it for the products that we don't have on our list. Okay? And we could do this plenty of ways. We could start with base and do it all over again. So do the calculation again, then filter to those that are not on the list, then do the summation, and then just divide. Or I'm going to do it a different way. I'm going to start with this base 2 table, and I'm going to take the products that are not on the list, and I'm just going to do average of this column. That will be my calculation, right? So either way would work, but I'm going to start with, so I'm going to go over here. I'm going to say start with a blank step, and I want you to start not with products 1, but I want you to start with base 2. And this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter this one down to, and this is critical, right? I want to filter down this to those that are not on the list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to help myself again. I'm going to start with give me the code that I almost need. So give me the code for the filter, right? Which is my table select rows, custom each, and then replace this part. Replace it with this. Now the list name is list of product, and the column name is product ID. And what do I need to do to get the products that are not on the list? Well, I just need to turn this true into a false, and that's it. So this will give me the items that are not on my list. And now I'm gonna sort of do this. I'm gonna delete this one. So I'm gonna remove this one. I'm gonna add a custom column. I'm gonna call it product ID. And I'm gonna turn it into other. So that will be okay. There it is. So product ID, other. And now I'm going to group by this other, which will give me a single row. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the average. Oh, it doesn't work again. So let's go to another monitor. So average of column custom. Let's show this. I'll call it custom. And there it is. So for product ID other, which are all the items that are not on the list, this is the percentage of difference. And now I could do something like this. Now I could say, okay, I got these two. Let me just see what the product ID is over here with products one. Oh, it's a number. Huh. Okay, let's turn it into text and I'll show you why. Okay, and let's call this part one. And let's call this second one. So that would be this one. So let's turn this one into text also. You see, because when you do an append, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to take the part one and we're going to append this to it. When you do an append, the column names and column types needs to match up. If they don't, well, the column names need to match up or nothing's going to work. And if the column types don't match up, well, then it just doesn't work right most of the time. So this will be part two. Okay, and now we're going to do a new step. And this one is going to be something like this. So we're going to use the table combine. Now the table combine is actually the append step. It's an append, but usually when you do an append, what you're appending are two queries, but we're just going to append two steps. And those are going to be part one and shockingly part two, like this. So we just want to combine the two. And if everything went according to plan, there you go. All right, so this is for the products that we need, month over month, and then for all the other products, month over month. Now let's do the same that we did before. So let's say we're gonna just create a connection to begin with. And then we're gonna put this one on a different sheet like this. Or actually, let's put it here. Okay, and now let's do two things. Let's change this into 20, this into 44, this into 2, and this into, I don't know, 55. I hope we have 55, and this into 8. And let's have another LinkedIn. And with this one, I'm just going to do a refresh. And this is where it gets really, really interesting, right? Because it did the filter dynamically. So now it filtered out those products. It figured out what those products were month over month and compare them to other. So let's change this into a percentage, something like this. Okay. It's a shame I can't hear you now because you're probably going, wow. And that's the idea of lists in ParaQuery. They can make things dynamic and they can make things amazing. Okay, now for demo number 3, so let's save this one up. let's just go with eternal happiness on demo 2. Okay, and for demo number 3, we're going to do something even crazier. We're going to do this. We have a table with certain columns. Now, what we want to do is we want to retain only the columns that are actual data. We don't need the others. We don't need the plan, and we definitely don't need the difference between actual and plan, right? So we want to say, we'll take this table and just keep the actual columns. Now, doing that in Power Query is not hard. You just select the columns that you need and you say remove others or whatever, however you want to play that. But here's the great thing that we're going to do is we have multiple sheets, and some sheets have 3 columns that are actual data, and some sheets, they have only 2. And even further than that, we're going to take it a bit further. We have an entire folder of Excel files with multiple sheets with different amounts of actual columns or columns holding actual data. And this is where it gets interesting, right? This is where you need a certain dynamic to it. Am I still in the game? Oh, seems I am. Okay, so what we want to do here is we want to keep only those columns that have the actual data. Okay, so we're going to start off like this. We're going to start with a new blank workbook. We're going to start with a new worksheet, and we're going to take one of those Excels just for reference. So we're going to take one of these. And you see they have the monthly site 1, they have the monthly site 2, right? Those are our different sheets. And then we need these to match up so that it only takes these columns that have the actual data. And now we're going to transform that a bit. Okay, and so with each of these sheets, this is what I want to do. I want to remove the top 2 rows because I don't need those. So remove top rows. I could do that dynamically by indexing, but we're just going to do it like this because they all only have 2 rows at the top. Okay, and this is where it gets interesting. So the next step, the next logical step would be promote headers, and then select the columns that you need and just go remove all other columns, right? But we're going to do it slightly different. So we're definitely going to save up this step. So we're going to save this up and we're going to call this base. And then we're going to do something like this. We're going to say transpose this. And what is this column now? Well, these are all my column names, right? So the only thing I need to do now is figure out which columns I need. And I'm going to do this in 2 steps. So the first one will be, well, I only need those that end with okay, so that's misfortunate. Let me take this over here. And I'm gonna show it to you later on. So it's those that end with, oh, and it doesn't work over here either. Cool. Okay. Then let's go like this. Let's call this base 2. Let's put in a blank step. This, 2 blank steps now. And let's just write it by heart. So let's say all I want is need a filter. I need a filter to be each, and then I'm going to remove all this, and it should be each text.ends with, where is it? Ends with the name is column 1, and the text that it should end with is actual. But then we'll just do another one. We'll say or on 1 equals month. Something like that. Let's see how that will like us. Oh, there it is. Okay. So it takes those ends with actual or have the word month in it. And now to make this dynamic, because we just got the columns that we need, but now we need to make this into a list. So let's turn this into a list. We go convert to list. Okay. And I get something like this. Now I'm going to call this columns list. And now I'm going to go back to my base. Okay, so let's just go back to this one. And let's just, what I was going to do is this was going to be the step name. So like this. Whereas this one is just going to be a, well, I'm going to call it FN sheet information. Okay, so column list is this, and now over here, what we're going to do is we're going to promote headers. And then we're going to take this one, and this one, and we're going to say remove other columns. So at this point, it's not dynamic. It says table select columns, and then start with this step or the end result of this step. And these are the columns I want you to keep. But what I'm going to say is, well, okay, do that. But the columns I want you to keep is columns it's the list that I created. Now you're not seeing the difference, but there's a difference now because it's going to be dynamic. So the columns list is going to be whichever AC at the end and month, and then it's going to be filtered to that. Right? And now we have something that we can really use. So let me do a duplicate of this. Let me go to Advanced Editor. And let me turn this into a function. So what is it going to take? It's going to take a file path and it's going to take a sheet name. And then it's going to go and use the file path instead of this. So this will be my file path. And this will be my sheet name. Oh, there it is, like this. Okay. So that's that. And that just turned it into a function, right? Okay, now we'll do this. Now we'll say, I want you to do a new query. I want you to go into an entire folder, and then we're just gonna take this path and put it right in here. So say start with that folder. And this is what we get. And this is the content of that folder. And now we're going to transform this. We're not going to combine it. We're going to transform it. And the way we're going to transform it is we're going to say, okay, so from all of this, this is unfortunate. Okay, so from all of this, all we need is the folder path and file name. So I selected the two. I selected them in that order. So folder path first, then the file name. I'm going to remove other columns, and now I'm going to get these two, but I'm going to get them like this. And then I'm going to select the two, and I'm going to add a column. Or actually, I'm just going to transform it by merging them. Well, this is okay. There it is. It did something. Okay. Yeah, it looks okay. Okay, and now I need a custom column. And now this looks even worse than that one. So let's do a custom column. Well, this is falling apart. Let me just go to a different screen and see if there's a difference. Yeah, I'm still not seeing the list, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to close and load. Just let it all drip into this Excel. Okay, so this is the state that we were at the end. This is the query that we only used so we could get the data. And now I'm just going to save this one up. I'm going to call it demo tree final one. I'm going to save it up. I'm going to close it. I'm going to close this one. And I'm going to reopen Excel with that one. So demo free final one, there it is. I could officially have the slowest Excel to open. I apologize for that. It's the amount of add-ins that are getting me. Okay, so enable content. We definitely don't want to update right now. Let's go into data and let's go into our Power Query editor and let's see what we have. Okay, so it brought it up on a different monitor. Let me bring it here. Let me do that. Okay, it looks good. So let's say add custom column. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to get Excel.workbook file.contents of all of those. Now, why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this so we get the sheet names, right? We need the sheets that we're gonna run our function against. So we'll just let this one do its thing. And what we want is we need the names and we need the kind. So the name of the sheet and the kind. So we will be able to differentiate tables from sheets. Right? So now we have, there you go. Okay, so we're only going to keep the sheets like this. And we're only going to keep the ones that start with monthly. Okay, and now we have the file name and we have the sheet, so we don't need this one. And now we can fire up our function because it knows what to do with sheets like this. So we're going to say, okay, now use the invoke custom function. Oh, there it goes, drop down. So use this function. There it is. And both should be column names. The first one should be, tedious. It should be merged, and the second one should be custom.name. Right? So use my function where the file path is in the first column and sheet name is in the second column. Say OK. Now we get a lot of tables, and let's just push them out. We're not going to use the original name this time. And there it is. Now, the great thing about this is how some, you see, there is data on sheet monthly site 1 for 2020, and there is no data for 2020 in monthly site 2, right? So it really did extract only those that it got. And there you go. That was demo number 3. I could say it was easy, but it was not. And with that being said, I'm going to stop the share now, and you have 2 minutes to hit me with questions. If we can still hear each other. Oh, hey, David.
Hi, Gašper. Thanks for your presentation. Let me just put up the question slide. All right, I think while we do that, we can also let everyone know that we do have evaluations for these presentations.
Ew. Yeah, should I put it back?
No, it's fine. I got it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. Thanks for that.
No worries. Meanwhile, for all of our attendees, please, if you have any questions, now is a good time to shoot them out in the Q&A panel, and I will let Gašper know. All right. Also, Microsoft eagerly awaiting. Yeah. Also, Microsoft is seeking research participants. So if you're interested in helping Microsoft with their research, let them know and scan that QR code.
There it is, scanned.
Are you interested too, Gašper?
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see what happens.
I feel like a researcher every day.
Yeah. All right. And now back to questions. We'll give them a few more minutes before we queue up David.
Okay.
We have a question from JB. Where is a good place to find out more about lists?
Well, good question. It's I would go to excelunplugged.com, which is my blog. And the only reason I'm sending you there is not to, publicize it or whatever. But I just did a series. It was a 3-part series on exactly that, using lists in Power Query. And it's also got 3 examples. It's not the same examples as we did here, but it's got 3 examples, and they should get you started and give you some additional information.
All right. I think we have time for one more question. I have another one. Just publishing it right now. I have a table with 2 columns, and each column has a list in it. How can we combine those 2 lists into a single column?
That's a good question. Now, combining of lists is almost the same as combining tables that are single columns. Now, each column has lists inside it. I'm not really sure, because you can have cells with lists. Columns with lists are more or less columns, like vectors. So those would just be simple appends. You just need the same name of the column. But if you have lists, per se lists, then you need to extract those lists and just do an append. It would always be, or a combine list, sorry, and do a combine of lists.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Can I reply to this?
Yeah, I think you can.
Can I hit
reply?
And...
Yeah,
okay.
You definitely can. So if you want, you can take that offline as well and continue your discussion.
I just wanted to give this to the first person. I think it's published. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's published.
I just sent the link. Okay. And if there are more questions, you can just send them to me, or I could just do this.
Yeah. You can put your email on the announcements or something. Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, I just did that.
Awesome.
There it is. Okay, so if there are more questions, just shoot up that email.
All right.
And before you cut me off, let me just say thanks to you guys. Thanks to Liam for throwing this together, and Tim. And thanks to you, Jonathan, for keeping us in order, keeping us in check. I know it's not easy.
I'll try.
Yeah, and with that, I'll just give the floor to David.